The Ryder Cup was supposed to be about golf, tradition, teamwork, respect. But this year, it turned into something else entirely. A soap opera on grass. And at the center of it all stood Bryson DeChambeau, a man who can turn a drive into a physics experiment and a quiet fairway into a headline. What unfolded at Bethpage Black wasn't just a golf match. It was chaos, caddies shouting, players squaring up, and one moment that left everyone asking, was this passion or pure pettiness? It started with a single step. Literally, Bryson's caddy, Greg Bodine, loyal, steady, always in the background, took one wrong stride and accidentally crossed Justin Rose's putting line on the 15th green. In golf, that's practically blasphemy. You don't touch another player's line. Rose saw it and snapped. His words came out sharp, cutting through the autumn air. Later he'd admit, maybe I could have said it more politely. Translation? He lost his cool. Bryson, never the type to bite his tongue, immediately fired back. He turned, eyes locked on Rose, and said something only the cameras half caught. But the tension said it all. By the time they walked off that green, it wasn't just two men disagreeing. It was two worlds colliding. Then Tommy Fleetwood, loyal teammate, fiery competitor, decided he wasn't letting Rose handle this alone. He stepped in, jaw tight, ready to defend his partner. From there, it spiraled. On the American side, Scottie Scheffler's caddy, Ted Scott, clashed with European vice-captain Francesco Molinari, who'd been shadowing the match. Voices rose, hands pointed. The Ryder Cup had suddenly turned into Real Housewives of the fairway. Every step toward the 16th tee felt heavier. The tension didn't fade. It fermented. Each glance, each smirk, each adjustment of a glove felt like a challenge. And the wildest part, none of this had anything to do with the score. It wasn't about strokes or stats. It was about respect, or, depending on which flag you stood behind, the lack of it. By the time the groups reached the 16th tee, the Ryder Cup didn't look like golf anymore. It looked like a standoff. Rose had made his point. Fleetwood had doubled down. And Bryson was boiling. Spectators later said you could almost see the steam rise off his visor as he muttered to himself, eyes burning through the European side. For a brief moment, the crowd thought they were about to witness something golf hadn't seen in decades. A full-blown, gloves-off brawl. Scottie Scheffler tried to keep the peace, but even he couldn't ignore the storm brewing around him. Molinari, never shy, jawed right back at Ted Scott. The fans fed on it. Every exchange drew louder roars, half cheers, half jeers. And when Rose and Fleetwood finally closed out the match on that 16th hole, the handshake line looked less like sportsmanship and more like damage control. Rose tried to downplay it afterward. He told reporters he'd already apologized if he'd come across too harsh. But Bryson wasn't buying it. This wasn't about etiquette anymore. It was about pride. Protecting his caddy, his team, his side of the line. And once pride enters the game, apologies rarely erase the bruise. Now let's not pretend the crowd was innocent. Farmingdale, New York has a reputation. Loud, ruthless, proudly partisan. The Bethpage Black fans didn't disappoint, or depending on how you see it, they didn't behave either. They heckled, they jeered, they mocked every European swing as if they were in a WWE ring instead of a fairway. And Europe, they loved it. Tommy Fleetwood and Justin Rose turned into showmen. They hit clutch shots, then smirked into the noise like rock stars taunting the crowd. Every boo made them stronger. Meanwhile, Bryson's argument with Rose had become a lightning rod for every ounce of tension in that stadium. Every time he stepped up to a tee, the chants rained down harder. What started with one caddy step was now a full-scale culture clash. And through it all, Team Europe didn't just survive, they thrived. By the end of the day, they led 11.5 to 4.5, and the American crowd, once thunderous, could only watch their heroes unravel. So was Bryson's anger really about that putting line? Or was it about watching his team lose control in front of their own fans? What followed on that 15th and 16th hole was something golf hadn't seen in years. Open conflict. Bryson, famous for his power and his opinions, wasn't letting Justin Rose's tone slide. Rose, equally stubborn, wasn't backing down. Then Fleetwood jumped in, fiery as ever, turning a two-man argument into a three-way shootout. Add Molinari chirping at Ted Scott, and suddenly it felt like a courtroom without a judge, chaos echoing across Bethpage. Everyone believed they were in the right. Every man thought he was defending the honor of his team. And the irony? Both Bryson and Rose still made par on that hole. Their golf was flawless, but no one remembered the shots, only the shouting. This was golf, the land of handshakes and quiet claps. And the footage told a different story. Raised voices, pointed fingers, tension so thick you could cut it with a wedge. The truth. Respect was gone. The gloves were off. Even the calmest players couldn't hide their frustration. The group had to pause on the tee just to cool tempers. Apologies were exchanged, but the air never cleared. When U.S. Captain Keegan Bradley spoke later, he tried to smooth things over but let something slip. Yeah, it was a little disrespectful. In golf, that word hits like a grenade, because once you question respect, you're questioning a player's very character. Bryson's reaction wasn't just emotional, it was personal. He wasn't defending etiquette, he was defending loyalty. You don't talk to my guy like that. To him, it wasn't about lines on grass. It was about boundaries between men. Europe, of course, saw it differently. Molinari laughed it off, saying, "That's the Ryder Cup. It's supposed to have fire, but for fans online, this was no joke." Within minutes, social media turned it into a digital war. Slow-motion replays, captions, exaggerated transcripts. Everyone had an opinion. Team Europe showed class. Bryson lost his cool. Rose disrespected a caddy. Americans can't handle pressure. Every angle, every theory, every slow-mo lip read. The feud had outgrown the fairway and gone global. When respect becomes a headline, you know the game has changed. The original putt, the strategy, even the final score. All of it was overshadowed by this feud. What should have been Team USA's comeback moment on home soil turned into a masterclass in dysfunction, frustration, ego, infighting. A crowd that thought they could rattle Europe, only to watch Europe weaponize every insult. By the end of Saturday, the scoreboard told the story, 11.5 to 4.5. And the only thing louder than the crowd was the silence in the US locker room. For Team Europe, though, it was fuel. Every jeer turned into adrenaline. Every argument became momentum. They were thriving on America's chaos. Justin Rose tried to close the book quickly. He told reporters there was no malice in what he said, that it was heat of the moment emotion. But Bryson's glare that evening said otherwise. He didn't need to speak. His face said it all. To him, it wasn't over. And maybe that's why this moment hit so hard, because it wasn't just a feud. It was a mirror, showing us the cracks in Team USA's armor. They weren't just losing a golf match, they were losing their composure. For the Europeans, this wasn't just victory, it was validation. They'd faced the storm and smiled through it. Meanwhile, Bryson stood in the eye of that storm, the lightning rod for every criticism aimed at the Americans. By Sunday morning, the story wasn't about birdies or bogeys. It was about rivalries, grudges, and the invisible fracture line dividing two continents. Pundits called it golf's civil war, because in a sport built on decorum, this weekend had ripped the curtain off. Players weren't just competitors anymore. They were personalities, tribes, and tempers. Even as Europe marched toward inevitable victory, the whispers continued. Could Team USA recover from this? Would Bryson and Rose ever shake hands again without tension? The answers didn't matter. The image had already been burned into history. Players and caddies squaring up under the American sun. Words sharper than any 9-iron. That's what fans would remember. Not the score, not the trophy, but the feud that cracked open golf's perfect surface. After the final putt dropped and Europe lifted the cup, Bryson finally spoke. His words were calm, but his tone carried a bite. He said he respected competition, but that respect had to go both ways. Then came the line that echoed across every highlight reel. If defending my team and my caddy is wrong, then maybe golf needs to rethink what respect really means. Boom. That was it. Bryson's mic drop moment. Some called it arrogance, others called it honesty, but everyone agreed. It was bold. His statement wasn't just directed at Rose or Fleetwood. It was aimed at the entire culture of golf, a culture that sometimes hides behind politeness while boiling underneath. And in that one sentence, Bryson captured the contradiction that defines modern sports. We demand emotion from our heroes, then punish them for showing it. By the time the cameras shut off and the crowds emptied out, the damage was done. Europe walked away with victory. Team USA walked away with questions. Could they rebuild chemistry? Could they silence the noise before the next Ryder Cup? And as for Bryson, he walked away knowing he'd become both villain and voice. Love him or hate him, he refused to be quiet. That's what makes this moment unforgettable, because the Ryder Cup of 2025 wasn't decided by putts alone. It was decided by pride, by passion, and by the thin line between fire and fury. And when history looks back on this weekend, it won't just remember who won. It'll remember the day golf stopped pretending to be gentle and showed its teeth. Bethpage Black gave us more than birdies and bogeys. It gave us raw emotion, unfiltered, unedited, and unforgettable. Bryson DeChambeau's defense of his caddy wasn't just a reaction, it was a declaration. A reminder that beneath the polos and polite applause, there's still heart, heat, and humanity. Maybe that's the real story, because for all its chaos, the 2025 Ryder Cup reminded us why we watch sports in the first place. Not for perfection, but for passion. And whether you side with Team USA or Team Europe, one thing's certain, golf will never look quite the same again.